Chanakya was a wise scholar, advisor, and politician in ancient India. He was the mentor of Chandragupta Maurya, who later became the first emperor of the Maurya dynasty. Chanakya was known for his wit, intelligence, and strategic thinking, and his teachings are still relevant today. One of the most famous stories about Chanakya is the story of the snake and the frog. According to the story, a frog was living happily in a well, enjoying the comfort and safety of his small world. One day, a snake fell into the well, and the frog was terrified. The snake asked the frog to help him out of the well, promising not to harm him. The frog was afraid of the snake and refused to help him. The snake then tried to sweet-talk the frog, telling him that he was his friend and would never harm him. But the frog remained skeptical and refused to help the snake. Chanakya used this story to teach the lesson that we should be careful in choosing our friends and allies. We should not trust anyone blindly, but instead, we should use our intelligence and judgment to assess whether someone is truly trustworthy. Another famous story from Chanakya's life is the story of the burnt bread. Once, Chanakya and his student, Chandragupta, were traveling through a forest. They were hungry and tired, and they came across a group of ascetics who were cooking bread over a fire. The ascetics offered the burnt bread to Chanakya and Chandragupta, but Chanakya refused to eat it. He explained that the bread was burnt on one side, which meant that the ascetics had only cooked it on one side, and the other side was still raw. Chanakya used this story to teach the lesson that we should always be careful in our dealings with others. We should never assume that someone is completely honest or reliable, but instead, we should use our intelligence and judgment to assess their true intentions. The story of the lion and the jackal. Once, a lion and a jackal became friends. One day, the lion fell sick, and the jackal saw an opportunity to kill him and take over his territory. But before he could do so, he was caught by the other animals who punished him for his treachery. Chanakya used this story to teach the lesson that we should be loyal and trustworthy to our friends, and never betray their trust. The story of the two merchants. Two merchants were traveling together, and they came across a river that was infested with crocodiles. One of the merchants was afraid and refused to cross the river, but the other merchant had a plan. He took some bread and threw it into the river, which distracted the crocodiles and allowed them to cross safely. Chanakya used this story to teach the lesson that we should always be resourceful and think creatively to overcome obstacles and challenges. The teachings of Chanakya. Chanakya's teachings cover a wide range of topics, including politics, economics, ethics, and personal development. Some of his most famous teachings include the importance of self-discipline, the value of hard work, the need to avoid procrastination, and the benefits of lifelong learning. He also emphasized the importance of being humble, honest, and respectful to others, and encouraged people to strive for excellence in all aspects of their lives. The story of the fisherman and the fish. Once, a fisherman caught a large fish, and the fish begged for its life, promising to grant the fisherman a wish if he spared it. The fisherman agreed, and the fish asked to be thrown back into the river. As the fish swam away, it called out to the fisherman, telling him that he should have wished for something more valuable than a single fish. Chanakya used this story to teach the lesson that we should always think carefully before making decisions, and not be satisfied with small gains when greater rewards are possible. The story of the ants and the sugar. A group of ants found a jar of sugar, but they were unable to reach it because it was on a high shelf. One of the ants suggested that they work together to climb up to the sugar, and after many attempts, they were able to reach it and enjoy the sweet reward. Chanakya used this story to teach the lesson that we can achieve great things if we work together and support each other. The story of the three tests. Chanakya believed that a person's true character could be tested in three ways: by giving them money, by giving them power, and by giving them alcohol. According to Chanakya, a person who is honest and virtuous will use money and power wisely, and will not be tempted by alcohol. On the other hand, a person who is corrupt or dishonest will misuse money and power, and will be easily tempted by alcohol. The story of the barber and the king. Once, a barber was shaving the king's beard, and he accidentally cut the king's skin. The king was furious and ordered the barber to be executed. But the barber pleaded for mercy, and promised to teach the king a valuable lesson. He said that if the king spared his life, he would teach him how to be a wise and just ruler. The king agreed, and the barber went on to teach him the principles of justice, honesty, and compassion. The king was so impressed by the barber's wisdom that he made him his chief advisor. Chanakya used this story to teach the lesson that even a lowly barber can possess great wisdom and knowledge, and that we should be open to learning from anyone, regardless of their social status. The story of the frog and the scorpion. Once, a scorpion asked a frog to carry him across a river. The frog was afraid that the scorpion would sting him, but the scorpion promised that he would not. Midway across the river, the scorpion stung the frog, and they both began to sink. As they were drowning, the frog asked the scorpion why he had broken his promise. The scorpion replied, "It's my nature." Chanakya used this story to teach the lesson that some people are simply unable to change their nature, and that we should be cautious when dealing with those who have a history of dishonesty or betrayal. The teachings on strategy. Chanakya was known for his strategic thinking, and his teachings on strategy have been studied and applied by leaders and managers around the world. Some of his most famous teachings include the importance of knowing oneself and one's enemy, the need to be flexible and adaptable, and the value of surprise and deception in warfare and politics. Chanakya also emphasized the importance of building alliances and networks, and of using diplomacy and negotiation to resolve conflicts. His teachings on strategy continue to be relevant today, and offer valuable insights into how to navigate complex and challenging situations. Chanakya used this teaching to emphasize the importance of cultivating moral and ethical values, and to warn against the dangers of greed and vice. The story of the lion and the jackal. Once, a lion and a jackal became friends, and the lion promised to share his prey with the jackal. One day, the lion caught a large deer, and invited the jackal to share it. But when the jackal arrived, he found that the lion had already eaten the best parts of the deer. The jackal realized that he had been tricked, and he vowed to never trust the lion again. Chanakya used this story to teach the lesson that we should be careful when making alliances or partnerships, and that we should be prepared to protect our own interests. The story of the wealthy merchant. Once, a wealthy merchant lost all of his wealth and became poor. He went to Chanakya for advice, and Chanakya told him to dress in rags and pretend to be a madman. The merchant did as he was told, and went from door to door begging for food. One day, he overheard a group of rich men discussing a plan to rob the king's treasury. The merchant immediately went to the king and told him about the plan, and the king rewarded him with a large sum of money. Chanakya used this story to teach the lesson that we should not be afraid to use unconventional or unexpected methods to achieve our goals. The teachings on education. Chanakya believed that education was the key to success and happiness, and he emphasized the importance of learning from a young age. He believed that a person should study a wide range of subjects, including ethics, politics, economics, and the arts, and that they should be disciplined and dedicated in their studies. He also believed that education should be practical and relevant to the real world, and that students should be encouraged to apply their knowledge and skills to solve problems and create value. Chanakya's teachings on education continue to inspire educators and students around the world. The story of the frog and the well. Once, a frog lived in a well and thought that the well was the entire world. One day, a wise frog from a nearby pond visited the well and told the frog about the vast ocean and the many other creatures that lived beyond the well. The well frog refused to believe him, and insisted that the well was the only world he knew. Chanakya used this story to teach the lesson that we should be open-minded and willing to learn about the world beyond our own limited experience. The story of the washerman and his donkey. Once, a washerman owned a donkey and a dog. The donkey was hard-working and carried the washerman's clothes to the river every day, while the dog did nothing but eat and sleep. One day, the washerman decided to sell the donkey and keep the dog instead. But when he tried to take the clothes to the river himself, he found that he could not carry them all. Chanakya used this story to teach the lesson that we should not underestimate the value of hard work and diligence, and that we should appreciate those who work hard and contribute to our success. The teachings on leadership. Chanakya believed that leadership was essential for the success of any organization or society, and that a good leader should possess certain qualities, such as wisdom, courage, honesty, and compassion. He also believed that a leader should be disciplined and dedicated, and should always act in the best interests of the people they serve. Chanakya's teachings on leadership continue to inspire people to become effective and ethical leaders in their personal and professional lives. The story of the snake and the mongoose. Once, a snake and a mongoose became friends. The snake promised to protect the mongoose, but one day, the mongoose attacked the snake and killed it. Chanakya used this story to teach the lesson that we should be careful when trusting others, and that we should always be prepared to defend ourselves when necessary. The story of the lion and the rabbit. Once, a lion wanted to eat a rabbit, but the rabbit tricked him by showing him his reflection in a pond and convincing him that it was another lion. The real lion was afraid and ran away. Chanakya used this story to teach the lesson that intelligence and wit can be more powerful than strength and force. The teachings on education. Chanakya believed that education was essential for personal and societal development, and that everyone had the right to learn and grow. He emphasized the importance of acquiring knowledge and skills, and of using them for the benefit of oneself and others. He also believed that education should be accessible to all, regardless of their social status or background. Chanakya's teachings on education continue to inspire people to pursue learning and personal growth throughout their lives. The story of the ant and the grasshopper. Once, a grasshopper spent the summer singing and dancing, while an ant worked hard to gather food for the winter. When winter arrived, the grasshopper had no food and was starving, while the ant had plenty of food and was well prepared. Chanakya used this story to teach the lesson that hard work and preparation are essential for success in survival, and that we should not be lazy or complacent. The story of the bird and the cat. Once, a bird and a cat became friends, and the bird invited the cat to live with him in his nest. The cat accepted, but soon began to harass the bird and eat his eggs. The bird realized that he had made a mistake, and he asked Chanakya for advice. Chanakya told him to pretend to be sick, and to cover himself with flour so that he looked pale and weak. When the cat came to eat him, the bird attacked him with the flour and drove him away. Chanakya used this story to teach the lesson that we should be careful when choosing our friends, and that we should be prepared to defend ourselves when necessary. The teachings on wealth and power. Chanakya believed that wealth and power were important, but that they should be earned through hard work, wisdom, and discipline. He emphasized the importance of self-control and self-discipline, and warned against greed, arrogance, and corruption. He believed that true wealth and power came from inner strength and virtue, and that these qualities were more valuable than material possessions or social status. Chanakya's teachings on wealth and power continue to inspire people to pursue success and prosperity with integrity and wisdom.